Heyo, welcome back to Thoughts and Opinions Are Our Own. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Kirk.
Kirk,
Yes.
We've had quite the year for our little family here. We had another family death, which was really sad.
2024, Jordan, has been a year for me unlike any other. And I'm not saying that for like dramatic,
Effect.
Yes, dramatic effect. My father died back in August, so a couple months ago. So my dad, your granddad, he was 89. He had just turned 89 2 days before he died.
Mhm.
And we had done a pod for my mom a few months ago because she died back in April of 2020.
4 months later.
So 4 or 5 months later.
You've lost your parents within 4 months.
That was rough. It's been rough, and it's been a lot to process. And
I think the question we all want to know is, did you go to this funeral?
Okay, well, no, I did not go to this funeral. So
you lost your parents in 4 months.
I mean, we can get into it. We can get into it if you would like to. I mean,
there's listeners, you don't have to go to either your parents' funerals.
Well, okay. There's a lot of different reasons, and again, we touched on this a little bit again when my mom, your grandma, died a few months ago. Why I didn't go, but
you do have options though.
Similar reasons why I didn't go. Now, again, yes. Everyone grieves differently. Yeah. Everyone mourns differently. So, some people, they have to go to the funeral. They have to see the casket. And if there's a body, they have to see the body. It helps them get closure. But for me, and again, we can get into this in a second, but I didn't feel like I had to go. And I didn't feel like I should go, to keeping it real with you and our listening audience. So,
that's okay.
Anyhow, we're going to honor my dad. Yeah. His name was Gordon. A lot of people called him Gordy.
And that wasn't his real name.
And that even really wasn't his first name. He actually went by his middle name. Interestingly enough, my mom also went by her middle name. So Sandra was my mom's name. Gordon was my dad's name.
And they both had nicknames.
And they both had Sandy and Gordy. Yes, they went together. So anyhow,
there's got to be something there with that.
Of course. So this is a pod to honor my dad, and his life, and he accomplished a lot in the 89 years that he was here on planet Earth. So we are going to kind of like do a chronological background of his life, and then there's some lessons in there. He was the seventh child out of 8 in his family.
Wow.
And this is back in the 1930s is when he was born. They did not have a lot of money. He had to work for a lot that he got, even as a kid. I think one of his first jobs was like a newspaper delivery kid. He was active in his school in terms of sports. He played tennis in high school, enjoyed the game of tennis. Mm-hmm. Didn't have money for college. So he figured it out. He joined the army for a few years.
He was stationed in France.
Love France. Love Paris.
I think he was a clerksman, and he said he would like get done with work really quick, and so he acted like he was busy, so he would walk around with a folder, or he's like, "Oh yeah, I gotta get these reports done."
Yes, I remember. Yes, you're right. Because if he had a folder or like a clipboard,
and he walked really fast,
it looked like he was going somewhere, and he had something to do, so they wouldn't stop him.
Confession: I've done it at work. It really does work.
So there you go. One of the many life lessons that Gordy has taught you. And then he came home after the army. He got the GI Bill, so that helped pay for his college. And he went to a couple different colleges. One of the colleges he went to it's called Michigan State University, obviously in Michigan, and he was in the marching band.
That's really cool.
And he would play like for football games. Obviously, they still do now. And he actually. One of the years he was there, the football team qualified for the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California, and he traveled with the marching band and marched right there in Pasadena, California, for the Rose Bowl. Again, a long time ago. So
that's really cool.
He was multi-talented, very smart. So then he graduated from college, started teaching. He was a teacher, educator, and a coach. So he started teaching. He was a tennis coach. So he used that background, obviously, as a high school student and athlete. He coached in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where the University of Michigan is, and he loved the Wolverines. Was a huge Michigan fan. I know he took you to some.
Yeah, he would take me and my sisters to the U of M marching band practices. And then he took us to, I think, a basketball game. And then when I was playing softball, he took me to a softball game, so that was cool. Sometimes he would take us to where the tennis team would practice, and we would just watch them practice.
I watched it, yes.
They have some really nice courts.
Yes.
I remember Aslan, she was in a tournament there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You're right. Your two younger sisters played on the courts. You're right.
That was pretty cool.
On the Michigan tennis courts.
So he loved tennis. He loved Ann Arbor, which is funny because Michigan State and U of M, they're rivals.
They were rivals. But he loved Ann Arbor, Michigan. Obviously, he thought Paris was probably the coolest city in the world.
Number one.
Ann Arbor, Michigan, probably the second coolest city in the world.
Whatever.
He met my mom. They got married. They had my sister first, and they had me. He was very involved in the tennis community in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and then throughout the state. He had a very successful for varsity tennis coaching career. He actually won 4 state championships in the 70s and 80s at the high school that he taught at and coached at. And in fact, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, they called him Ann Arbor's Mr. Tennis.
Yeah.
He was so involved, and he was very well connected, very social, got to know.
I remember we had, I think it was like a ceremony, and they gave him like a bench.
Yes.
Like they dedicated like the bench and the tennis courts to him.
At the high school that he worked at. And so they tried to, I mean, he taught there many, many years.
Isn't he in the Hall of Fame too?
Yes. So it's called the Michigan High School Tennis Coaches Association. That's a lot right there. But he was elected into their Hall of Fame in, I think it was 1996. Again, won many awards, Coach of the Year, state championships. So anyhow, very well known throughout the state for his tennis. Taught many years at the same high school where he coached at, and then also very involved in the church that we went to in Michigan. He and my mom, they had a lot of, they would have prayer meetings, Bible studies at their house. They would, use the house obviously as a ministry, have people over, social. He was on the board at our church for a couple of years. He was a Sunday school teacher. So very also not only involved in the community in terms of academics and sports, but also for church. As he got older, as my parents got older, they enjoyed going to Florida.
Yeah.
For their winter and summer vacations, and when he retired, obviously then they had a place down in Florida, and I know you got to visit them a couple times in Florida.
Yeah, I think it was like 10 years ago. They flew me down, and I think I talked about this on her pod. They flew me down, and I think I flew into Tampa, and it was like in the Tampa, St. Pete, Bradenton area, which ironically is where the
hurricane just hit.
That's interesting. Yeah. But I remember it was a really nice area, and they were just so relaxed. Like they didn't even seem like themselves, and they were like, Jordan, why are you so uptight? And I just remember, like, you would wake up and you could have breakfast outside, then you could go to the pool, or they're like, hey, do you want to go to the beach? And there was one day, I actually Googled it. It doesn't exist anymore. He took me to some, like, Christian, I don't know, like a Christian.
Oh, like a theme park type thing.
Yeah, but there wasn't any rides.
There weren't any rides.
It was like they did, like, skits and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So it was past Orlando. I remember we drove past Disney, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess.
Disneyland in Orlando, of course.
Like, we drove past it, and he's like, no, we're still going. And it was really nice to just kind of like spend the day with him, and we just kind of talked about like basically like everything. He told me about like when he was in France. He told me about tennis. I was getting ready to graduate, so he kind of asked me about that, and then we just kind of talked about Florida and the beach, and then he would listen to classical music a lot.
Yes.
So I remember we listened to it on the ride back, and then we would go to the beach, and he and my grandma, they just seemed so happy there, and like they were just so relaxed, and it was like, was it body snatchers? Like they
because they acted differently in Florida.
He was just he took his shirt off. He was just like soaking
It was
up
their
the
happy
sun.
place. It was definitely their happy place.
She was like,
yes.
let's just like go
Yes.
swimming, and we were just like hang out at the beach all day. And then they wanted me to. They were like, oh, let's take her here, let's take her there. So they took me to their church down in Florida. Then that was the first time I saw Publix. I'm like, what the heck is this? It's not Kroger's. And they seemed really happy there. And I think, like, in my own opinion, because this is thoughts and opinions.
Thoughts and opinions.
They probably should have just moved there, like after they retired, because they seemed healthy. They seemed really happy. They seemed like they had a lot of energy. In Michigan, they didn't really. And I know, like, part of that's like getting older, but they talked a lot about getting vitamin D and going to the ocean and just playing tennis. So in my opinion, they probably should just move to Florida.
Florida, I have very good memories of Florida going as a kid, because then my grandparents, so your great grandparents, they also had a place there in Florida in the wintertime when they retired. So I think then my parents saw that. My parents saw what a fun place Florida can be for some people. So then they had their place there, and we visited a few times. And I know you, like you just said, you had fun going and seeing them there. So
I may move.
I love Florida. I love Florida.
I might move to Florida.
I love Florida.
I don't know. Next year, a couple of years, we'll see.
Love Florida. My dad was very smart. He book smart, but also like he knew a lot of trivia. Like, that game Trivia Pursuit. Like he knew a lot of answers to those kind of just not random questions, but he knew a lot about the world. He studied things.
Was so good with geography.
He knew history.
Yeah. He knew French and English.
Obviously, that's what he taught. He taught French and English.
Den in the basement. It was just filled with books and tapes and CDs. And it wasn't just that, like, it was also like spiritual too. Like, I could tell, like, he was hungry to like learn more spiritually.
Yes. Yeah. And I think when he met my mom, I think my mom taught him a lot about God and the spiritual realm and
the Pentecostal.
Yep. Operating in spiritual gifts, and he enjoyed that. And like I said, they were very involved in our church.
Well, even like after he retired, like he would still go to, I think it was like the Bible, like the men's Bible study.
Oh yes,
and then he was like a greeter at church. And
yes.
I didn't know this, but he would like drive to go to other Bible studies.
Yes.
And it was funny. You could hear him before you could see him.
Yes. He laughed a lot. He had a very loud social, like he was loud
and
socially.
He was a yapper. He would just come up to you and
he would ask questions. He would ask a lot of questions. But again, I think that was part of, that's how he learned things.
Yeah.
Was talking to people and asking them questions and backgrounds, and then trying to connect some interesting topics that he already knew about with to get to talk to those people. So it's been, like I said, it's been an interesting year. Both of them now are, I know they're in heaven. I know they're together. They were married over 60 years.
Well, I'm just really happy I got to see him.
You got to, yeah. Go ahead and share that.
Yeah. So over the summer, I'm at a new job now. Shocker. I took some time off, and me and my mom, we went back to Michigan, and we got to see like her side of the family. And then I got to see my grandpa one last time, and I could just tell like he was getting older. And I think my grandma dying, they've been married for so many years, and, just losing like your partner in life for so long. I think, you could have gone like two ways, either like, hey, I'm free, I'm a bachelor again, or like, no man, like I lost the love of my life. Like, what am I going to do? And I think he had to kind of figure out some things without her. And it was kind of like bittersweet, because it was cool to see him. But I could just tell he talked about her a lot. He said he really missed her.
Of course.
He would dream about her.
Yes.
He just wished like he could talk to her. And I know like my aunt and uncle would go to visit, and I think my cousin would too. So I think like for someone that was super social, I think he got a little lonely, and I think that was hard. I think he tried to connect with the people that he was living with, but I think he was also like, okay, do you play tennis? No. Okay. So again, he was trying to kind of figure out some things, and he did ask to kind of call you and my sisters. So that was really nice.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that was obviously the last phone call I had with him was about, I think, a month before he died, and it was real quick. I remember you were having breakfast with him, and I kind of knew it. I kind of like, this might be it. This could be the last phone call I
think I knew that too. And I just remember me and mom, when we walked away, like we were crying. I was like, I think that's it. And she's like, no, don't say that.
Well, it's again, we already discussed that when my mom died back in April. I mean, it's tough when someone dies that you've known for a long time. Obviously your parents, your grandparents, to see them get older, to see them change, to see their personalities change, to see their bodies change. And so, not to get too down and depressed, but I mean, it's tough. It's part of the life cycle is to see, people get older and how they handle certain situations. And I think, again, I think Gordy did it the best he could. One of his goals, he was really trying to make it to 90 years old.
He was so close.
He was 89. He was 363 days away. I mean, he really was close. And so anyhow, this was, I know it's kind of a short pod, but this was our tribute to him. He was a very smart guy. He was a very fun guy.
Yeah.
He loved tennis, loved music, loved people. Loved God, loved his family.
I just know, like, he's in heaven, like, playing tennis right now.
I know he is.
He probably walked up to Moses. It was like, now, tell me about this.
Tell me about the 10 Commandments. Tell me the story about the 10 Commandments. He probably
went up to Daniel. It was like, all right, tell me about the lions.
The lions. How many were there? How big were they?
He was very bold. I just know, like, if he went up to people down here and was just asking them questions, I know he probably is up in heaven. And he's probably just like chatting with everyone.
He's making a lot of friends.
And they're both together.
They're both together, and I know they are, and I'm very excited about that. And, I know we'll see them again. So,
yes.
There you go.
All right. We love you, Grandpa.
Love you, Dad. Rock and roll.